folks, welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob. I have to apologize right off the bat because I have one of my favorite guests ever on the show, and I forgot what he likes, and that's this brown box, my box, solid wood box I got from Thailand. But I'll introduce him anyway. He's the Attorney General of the state of Rhode Island. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Bob. Great to be with you again.
Always nice to see you.
I love the box because you have great questions.
I'm mad at myself that I didn't have the box today.
Well, the box is going to have to be in your head today, and you're just going to have to pull the questions right out of your head.
And I got a legit reason. I had an emergency dentist appointment today, and I got to say kudos to my dentist because I called him. He's not even working today, and he went in today to take care of a tooth problem I had.
And you feeling better, I hope?
I'm feeling fine.
Good.
I'm feeling fine.
Good. We don't have enough dentists. I've been meeting with them a lot lately because, like a lot of people who provide health care, primary care doctors, we don't have enough of them, and they're leaving Rhode Island. And we can't recruit more of them, and so there's a real problem.
Why can't we recruit more of them?
Well, because they don't. Rhode Island is a difficult place to practice medicine because the rates of reimbursement. So doctors and dentists get paid by insurance. Right. That insurance comes from three places. Either comes from private insurance, Delta Dental for dentistry mostly, Blue Cross mostly, but not all of it,
right,
but largely Blue Cross for healthcare, doctors, that kind of thing. Then there's Medicare, which is for older Rhode Islanders and older Americans, like my parents, for example. Yep. And then there's Medicaid. Which is for people who are poor. Right. Or facing economic challenge.
And that's a state-run agency, right?
It's part federal and state. There's a state Medicaid office, but it is federally funded as well. So for every dollar the state spends, the federal government gives the state $1.29.
Oh.
So the more you spend as a state, the more you get back from the federal government, dollar to dollar plus 29 cents. So a lot of people don't know that.
Right.
But that's why when we raise our Medicaid rates, we're not only putting more of our money in, we're getting federal money to match it,
money in, yeah,
plus another 29 cents per dollar. So it's not insignificant. That's more than 25% on top of the dollar we put in. So that's important. So anyway, for all of that, dentists and doctors and healthcare providers and hospital systems, those systems get less from commercial insurance like Blue Cross and Delta Dental, Medicare, and Medicaid compared to our neighboring states.
Why?
Well, that's a good question. It's not clear why. Medicare is a federally run program, and so a lot of that turns on things like we don't have a rural hospital. A lot of the Medicare rates were set 30, 40, 50 years ago and haven't kept up with the times. It needs to change, but like most things in Congress, it's very difficult to do so. Right. The congressional delegation is working hard on that, but it's really hard to change that. There are some opportunities, and we're trying to help there, but that's hard. We haven't spent the money on Medicaid, and we haven't leveraged our federal dollars the way we could, right, the way they do in Massachusetts. So that's why we get less from Medicaid for our providers. And then commercial insurance, we believe, is less as well. And that's pretty clear. I mean, we've spoken to doctors, dermatologists, for example, that have a practice in Seekonk and have one in Warwick or Cranston, and the one in Seekonk makes at least 30% more.
30% more?
Oh yeah, no, it's not insignificant.
Wow.
So when you have somebody getting out of, say, medical school with $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 worth of debt, before they even begin to think about buying a house in this market, you're going to get paid 20, 30, 40% more in another state. That's where you're going to go. So that's why it's very difficult to find a doctor. If your doctor retires, it's very difficult to find a replacement. You wait a long time to see a specialist. It's why dentists don't take Medicaid. Just can't make it work.
Right.
So they don't take Medicaid. Well, more than 40% of our children, Bob, in Rhode Island are on Medicaid, which means they're getting no dental care at all, particularly in the inner city. So there are children who literally have to have all their teeth removed on the lower part of their mouth. They have black teeth, they have abscesses, infections. They're not getting cleanings, they're not getting cavities filled, they're getting no dental care at all. And you know, my children got dental care. So when we talk about kids in our inner cities who are not doing as well as kids
Right.
in the suburbs? Well, there are lots of things going on. Sometimes it's they don't have enough food to eat. That's part of it.
Right.
But even if you do have the food to eat, if your mouth hurts all the time,
Yeah, exactly. You're not
how
going
do
to
you
eat.
concentrate?
You're
How
not
do
going
you
to eat.
Here's another one. 20% of kids in Providence are lead poisoned because they live in apartments where there's lead paint.
Right, right.
Lead paint does terrible things to human development. And so 20% of kids in Providence schools are lead poisoned. 40% of our kids statewide, probably higher in Providence, are getting no dental care. Those are just two factors that are holding those kids back. And I think that we, as a state and as a people, owe our children better. Our state leaders haven't been focused enough on it, particularly in the governor's office, to be frank. And I think we need to do something about it. And I'm really hopeful that by the time I see you again, my office is going to deliver a multi-million-dollar amount of money that through the Rhode Island Foundation will go directly to children to treat their dental needs. We focused on that because, as Attorney General, I don't control state budgets. I don't even get to propose one.
You don't get money.
No.
You don't take in any money.
So I've got to chase it through the work that we do. And I'm fortunate through the good work of the men and women in my office that we're able to bring back lots of money to Rhode Island. I want to direct some of it
A few
to
years
health.
ago, you brought back all that money.
Opioids, over
Opioid.
$330 million in medicine and cash. And our opioid rates of overdose are going down. They need to go down a lot further.
Right.
But I like to think it's in part because that money is being put to good use by people across the state.
Yeah, that was a big fistful of money you got.
It was, and we've done that. We've done that a number of times. If you would have put together all the monies that we brought back in the 6+ years I've been Attorney General, I'm confident it would approach, if not exceed,
$1 billion.
$500 million.
$500 million.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Sure is.
Yeah, more than pays for my budget.
Yep.
It's why frankly, the governor with my office has been, I think, penny wise and pound foolish, because unlike the General Assembly, which has invested in my office, meaning they've given me the money, or at least the position. I've actually funded some of these positions myself through the monies we recover ourselves, so the money we recover. I've gotten 15 more lawyers that the governor didn't want to give us, but those are the lawyers that are fighting for Rhode Islanders every single day. They're fighting for our health care. We're fighting to keep 2 hospitals open in North Providence and Providence, Roger Williams and Fatima. Means an awful lot to the people
I was going
of
to get
those
into that.
communities.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so I'm really proud of the work, but that work wouldn't be possible, frankly, without the Senate President and in particular the Speaker of the House being champions for my office and understanding that a strong Attorney General is good for the people of the state. Governor thinks a weak Attorney General is good for the people of the state, or maybe good for him. What's good for the people of the state is a strong Attorney General's office, because we're out there fighting for them every day. Day after day, I could give you countless examples: healthcare, consumer protection, environmental protection. Setting aside the public safety mission that we do by prosecuting criminals and keeping dangerous people off our streets, a strong Attorney General's office can just do so much good. It's why I love the job. It's very exciting work.
Well, before you were Attorney General, you were a federal.
I was, I was
with
the
the
U.S.
feds,
Attorney
right?
in Rhode Island, and I was a prosecutor on the line. I was an assistant U.S. Attorney and an assistant Attorney General. Before that, I was in a large law firm in Boston. I've had the good fortune of having a really broad legal career. So I've seen the private sector.
Right.
I've seen state government. I've seen how the federal government works. I've been a federal prosecutor, been a state prosecutor, led those 2 offices, and now that I'm 60, I look back on it, and I'm really grateful for the opportunities that have been afforded me. And look, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you as Attorney General if Senators Reid and Whitehouse hadn't recommended me to President Obama to be the U.S. Attorney, going on 15 years ago.
Right.
And that's really where my ability, I think, to try to impact the lives of everyday Rhode Islanders really kind of took off. And I've had the great fortune to work with an amazing team of lawyers, men and women, and support staff that have
How many people total you
really
have?
moved the envelope forward. 250.
250 altogether.
All across
How many
the state.
lawyers?
About 110, 115.
I've always had this question about state,
Yeah.
this state in particular. And it's not this governor or the last governor, because they all do it. Why, when you got, how many lawyers?
110.
You got 110 lawyers in your office. Why do we have to hire outside law firms?
I'll do you one better. There are 300 lawyers working for the state of Rhode Island. I've only got
right, that's right, because the legislature has their own.
Well, the Department of Corrections has lawyers. The Department of Health has lawyers. The Department of Administration has lawyers. The governor's own office has lawyers. The Department of Labor and Training has lawyers. The EOHHS, the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, has lawyers. 200 lawyers work for the state, don't work for me, okay? So what I ask is, what are all those other lawyers doing?
Right.
So when the Department of Corrections gets sued, my lawyers defend the Department of Corrections, not the Department of Corrections lawyers. My lawyers are the one who go to court. When something needs to happen with health, my lawyers go to court. Department of Health lawyers don't. So look, I'm not saying they're not good lawyers. All I'm saying is there's a lot of lawyers out there that I think should work for me. Let me hire them, let me deploy them. We'd get a lot more bang for the buck, and we wouldn't need 300, I can tell you that. I could probably get by with 200 if you just give them all to me, but leave that aside for a minute. Governors choose their own lawyers, I think, for a couple of reasons. Either they don't have a relationship with trust with the Attorney General for whatever reason. I think there are other reasons why, I think, let's face it, there are some politically connected law firms that lobby for and get state work.
Right.
I mean, look, take the truck tolling case. It does not make a lot of sense to have the Attorney General and another law firm involved in it. Whether you agree with truck tolling or not, it's a law the legislature passed. I got to defend it. It's my job.
Right.
But Adler, Pollack, and Sheehan is also in that.
Exactly.
I'm defending the state of Rhode Island. They're defending, I believe, the Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority. There's no reason for that. But governors make
Which
these
is
choices.
part of the state.
Yes.
The Rhode Island Turnpike
Yes,
Authority.
it's quasi-state, but that's how this happens. I don't think that's the way to run the railroad. If you were letting me sit back and design it, Bob, this is what I would do, whether I was AG or not. If I was governor, if I was putting a budget together, 300 lawyers on the state payroll, we don't need all 300 of them. Take 200 of them and put them all in the AG's office and say, look, if each agency needs one to be a liaison, that's fine. Health doesn't need 6 lawyers, all right?
Right.
So let the AG's office be the true lawyer for the state. We'll head off problems, or they would head off problems. In other words, most of the time we get sued, you don't get to that point because you see it coming and you avoid it.
Right,
yes.
right.
We get so many cases where you just, look, some of them are crazy cases and we're going to have to defend them no matter who it is. Some of them you kind of roll your eyes like, how did we get here? So I think that you could really save the state a lot of money, but more importantly, get better results, or just as importantly, get better results if you just redid it that way. That's the way Maryland does it, and it makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know why the Department of Health needs 6 lawyers. Look, they're all good lawyers. I'm not saying they're not.
Right.
But they're not litigating cases in court on behalf of the state of Rhode Island. We are. So I'll give you an example. Roger Williams and Fatima Hospitals, their owner in California isn't paying their bills.
Right.
That's a problem, right?
Big.
Because if you take it, whatever you need to do a surgery for you or me, and you can't get the supplies you need because the supplier isn't giving you the things you need.
Right. You're endangering people's lives.
Sure, they can't get the surgery done, so they're not paying their bills. That's important, right? So we went to court. My lawyers, not the Department of Health lawyers, my lawyers went to court, and over a 3 or 4 day hearing with witnesses in front of Judge Stern, moved to force them to pay their bills. And Judge Stern, at the end of that hearing, agreed with us and ordered them to pay within 10 days $17 million in unpaid bills.
Wow.
Well, my lawyer's doing that work. So what's my point? Sure, I get an agency may need an inside lawyer to give them advice on day-to-day things. There are way too many lawyers out there. And the way we handle litigation on behalf of the state is a mystery to me. My view is either give it all to me or do it on your own.
Right.
But let's not bake a half loaf.
Right.
That makes no sense.
Make you accountable for handling.
Correct. I'll take it on, but give me all of it. And give me the people to do it right.
And what's the average lawyer make in these departments?
Well, I don't know what the average lawyer makes, but many of them make more money than my lawyers do.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, look, an experienced lawyer in my office, may make $120,000 a year. They're supervising younger lawyers. They're handling significant cases. Lawyers right out of law school, they making around 72, 75. But I'll tell you what, one of the real challenges is I've got an excellent lawyer. She's youngish. I was talking to her today. She's on my consumer protection team. Her husband's a resident, so he's a young doctor. They're having a real time finding a home to buy.
Yeah.
And these are people who aren't making small amounts of money. They're doing okay.
Yep.
By most Rhode Islanders standards. So when they can't buy a home, what does that say for the average Rhode Islander?
No shot. They got no shot. No shot.
I was able to buy a home when I was in my early 30s. I'm still living in it. It's the only home I've ever bought.
In Jamestown?
In Jamestown, where my family has been for a long time. But for most young people, that's not possible today.
I hear people paying $600,000 and $700,000 for a 3-decker in Central Falls.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I believe it.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Because as a first house, and if you're young, the mistake a lot of people make is to buy a single-family house, because you're hanging yourself out there. If something goes wrong, something goes bad, you get hurt or whatever, lose your job or something, you're losing the house.
That's
so
right.
At least if you got a 2 or 3 family, you can cover.
Well, that's true. The other, how do I put this? I think another mistake that you can make, and the interest rates are a good example of this. Interest rates are really high now. That's really hurting people, right? It's making it even harder. When we bought our house, in 1995, interest rates were about 8, 8.25. So they're about what they are today.
Yep.
We didn't really think of them as that high because when I got out of law school, they were in the teens. 13, 14, 15%.
I bought my first house September 21st, 1971. That should tell you something, right? 15.5%.
Yeah, and they were like that in the late 80s too, because a lot of my friends, I was right out of law school, I was living in Boston, had a lot of friends who worked at the law firm I was in. It's a 400-person law firm, a lot of people there.
Wow.
So, there are people at all stages of their legal career, but people 7, 8 years out of law school starting to have kids, starting to buy homes. They were buying homes. They were upside down. Their interest rates were 15, 16, 17%. So 8% felt pretty good in 1995. But the point is the prices were low. And the other thing was we bought a house that we could grow into, right? So that if the interest rates changed, we wouldn't be stuck, right? We didn't have any kids then, but we ended up having 2 boys. The house was just right for having the 2 kids, and then it's not so big that now that they've gone, flown the coop, as they say, that my wife and I feel like we're rattling around in it. But I don't envy young people.
Oh God, no.
Trying to buy a home today.
Awful.
It's tough. And so look, I think the speaker's done a good job with his housing package. I think that should move the needle forward. I know cities and towns seem to be worried about it, but I have to admit, I drive up places like Post Road in North Kingstown, and there's a lot of vacant space that could be, strip malls where no one's lived, that could be repurposed into apartments or homes.
Of course.
Or
even
condominiums.
Even malls, some of these malls.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's, I think some cities and towns are worried about school children. They don't want more children in the schools. But the truth is that children make for a vibrant community. I think one of the problems with Jamestown, my family.
No high school.
Well, no high school. We don't have a little league this year. There aren't enough kids. Yeah. So our little league, I play little league there. Look, I am the son of Portuguese ferrymen and fishermen. That's my background.
Right.
And I grew up in a town of Portuguese and Irish mostly, with some summer visitors. We had enough kids for a little league. We had enough kids to have an elementary school, not a high school, but we had an elementary school. Jamestown has outpriced itself from children, families with children, and that's not good for a community. I mean, there's a vibrancy that young families bring.
Well, eventually the older people all go.
Correct, and look, nobody wants to live in a town of old people like us, Bob.
Yeah.
So anyway, schools, I think, are ways of keeping property values up. I think young families want schools that can educate their children well. That's a different challenge too, right? We've got to make sure that that's every community. But for right now, it's really short-sighted to think, look, we don't want to build housing because we don't want families to come. You always want families to come.
Right, right.
When they get there, you got to make sure you educate your children, and that's something we haven't done successfully in a lot of places.
Well, I think it's more that they don't want low-income people. They don't want to subsidize housing. I knew that was kind of the case in one town I lived in years ago, that they would actually pay the penalty rather than
well, I don't think they're going to have that choice now. The speaker's made it pretty clear that this is going to happen. And look, state law preempts local law. And so I think we're going to see some changes. Certainly with these accessory dwelling units, I think we're going to see some changes. Even in places like Jamestown, where it's pretty built out. I mean, Jamestown, if you look at Jamestown, there aren't any spaces left to do large developments. Whatever looks like a big farm field is preserved and protected. So a lot of the houses there are kind of one lot at a time, or frankly, tearing down a house and putting up a bigger one.
A big one.
Right? And that has issues too. But in some of these other communities, there's clearly space and opportunity to build more housing. And we need to do that because we've got to bring these housing prices down.
Well, the other way you bring it, well, first of all, you bringing the interest rates down.
We've got to do that too.
And what that would do, obviously, is a lot of people are hanging on to their 3% mortgages. They would
Correct.
like to buy another house, move up.
Sure.
But they're not going to move with that 3% mortgage.
Look, I don't think I'm ever going to leave my home. I like where I am. It's just right. But there's no way I would leave. So some people say, well, why not downsize? I've got a 4-bedroom home. I had 2 children. And so I wanted a guest bedroom. So if somebody, my wife's family lived in, all around the country, but her parents in New Jersey and Florida, so you wanted space for them. We wanted a guest room. We don't need that big a house now. I mean, we get rid of a bedroom, at least. I mean, the kids still come back. They're in their 20s. But why would I downsize? I mean, I'm going to be paying, the housing prices are way up.
Right.
And while I could get more for my house, I'm going to spend it on the next house, plus the interest rate's going to be higher. It doesn't make any sense. You're right. People are going to hang on to the house until the interest rates come down.
Well, that's what's happening. That's absolutely what's happening across the country. Mm-hmm. Until they come down, because people are not used to paying rates like I paid and you paid.
I know.
In your younger years.
Yes, I know.
They're used to them 3 and 4%, which I used to tell some of these younger people when they're looking for a house, don't wait. You better jump on something.
Get in now. It won't last forever. But it's like anything. You think it can't happen, and then it does.
Right.
It's kind of like COVID, right? Nobody thought COVID could happen, and then it did.
Exactly, and it's kind of still happening, or coming back a little bit. Somewhat.
Yeah. You still. My wife.
What would we do if it did come back? How would we handle that?
Well, I mean, I think it wouldn't come back in the same way. If you're saying if it came back without a vaccine,
right?
Yeah, I mean, would we handle it differently? It's a really good question. I mean, I think. Look, I'm married to a physician. My son is now a brand new physician. He graduated from medical school this past spring.
Oh, great.
I tend to listen to them when it comes to things like this. And look, when you look back on it, it's like anything, were we perhaps overcautious in some ways? Maybe, but a lot of people died.
Yeah.
I remember being in Washington and on the mall, they planted a small white flag for everybody who died. And where possible, a family member had written a note, if it was a child to their grandfather, mostly older Americans. I mean, it was a sea of white flags. I mean, it was really, and they had a tally on the mall.
Really?
And it was, I think by then it was
brought it home for you then, I guess, huh?
It sure did. It sure did. It sure did.
But I see the argument the other side has, that it's the government sticking something down to our throats, making us do something, making us take something, put in our body that
I know
doesn't
But
belong.
you had the polio vaccine.
Exactly.
You had the measles vaccine.
I had them all. I
Right?
got the big circle on my arm.
Yeah, what was that? Was that
that was everything.
The tripod. There was one. There was mumps, rubella.
Yep.
Tetanus,
malaria.
Yeah, whatever. Anyway, DPT I think it was called. Doesn't matter. Diphtheria. Doesn't matter. Maybe I'm totally wrong about all this. Bottom line is that happened all the time. In fact, you couldn't go to school unless you had.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So look, I gladly got my vaccines. I get them again. I get them updated. I had COVID, and
I caught it recently.
Did you really?
I didn't have it all through that thing. I caught it a couple of months ago.
And how'd it go?
Nothing.
Good.
I took that that package they had there.
I know what you mean.
What do they call that package?
Yeah, it begins with a P.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about, yeah. So you came through it okay.
Pax,
I got it
they
too,
call it,
right before the election. So right before the 2022 election.
Really, yeah?
I got COVID. And so it was probably in late October. And I came out of, I had to stay home for 10 days. And my first day out, I had a candidates forum at North Kingston High School, and with my opponent, and it's sort of like a debate. Like, the kids would ask questions, and you would each give an answer. Because I had to wear a mask, because back then you had to wear a mask
right.
for however many days after you came out. I just remember it was really difficult to do that with a mask on. You're first of all, it's hot, like it always is with a mask. I mean, you deal with it, but I mean, it's you're trying to. You're trying to address questions or, respond to what your opponent's saying about you, and it's just really hard with a mask on. But I also, COVID also, there's definitely, I think, a connection between the coughing that I had in COVID, Bob, and the spinal surgery I needed.
Oh, that's right,
afterwards.
Yeah.
And
now, you think that was connected?
Well, I'll tell you this. I had a physical right after the election, or maybe right before the election, but I just come out of COVID. I started to have pain in my upper right shoulder blade.
Right.
And tracing that pain as it got worse, there and in my arm, ultimately led to the spinal cord surgery I had. So it's possible that I never would have known about it.
Right.
Had not COVID sort of, the doctors think that
coughing.
the COVID, the really intense coughing that
right.
came with COVID for me.
Could have hurt your back.
Exactly. Did something in the spinal area.
Yes, I agree with that.
That brought my issue to a head. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad that's behind me, and I don't believe I've had it since.
Now, how long ago was that you had the surgery?
That was in the surgery?
Yeah.
Was a year ago, May. Yeah, so about 14 months ago.
And you're all right from it?
I feel good, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, strong, standing up tall, feel good.
And what'd they take out?
Oh, well, they had to take out some bones just to get what they had to do. So I had, my spinal cord was attached to a piece of tissue. It was called a tethered spinal cord. It was being pushed forward.
Right.
And causing nerve pain in my back and in my arm. And when your cord is pushed like that, because a pocket of fluid develops in your spinal column as a result of the cord being attached.
Now, what part of the spinal column?
Thoracic.
I knew you were going to say
T5,
that.
T6.
Yeah.
So what that pocket of fluid did was, it's called a dissecting searing. So what that pocket of fluid did was drive itself into my spinal column.
Right. No wonder it didn't affect your lungs, too.
It caused a lot of nerve pain. And so, and ultimately could have caused me to lose the use of my legs. So anyway, they went in, did a laminectomy, took the bones, spinal cord, the bones out, or parts of the bones out, so they could access the area, cut the spinal cord away. The plastic surgeons came up and sewed me up with a nice big scar in the middle of my back, and then sent me home to the care of my wife. And, I couldn't go into work for about 6 weeks, but I got off those medications as quick as I could. And I would say I marched in the Bristol 4th of July parade. Right. So by 2 months later, I was doing okay, and I feel good today. Thanks for asking.
I've done that a few times, by the way.
Yeah.
Not fun. In fact, right now I have bad sciatica. I mean, my left side hurts, burns like hell right now.
Yeah.
All constant.
It's terrible. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. My forearm feels like that a little bit sometimes too, but. Look, I think one thing that I learned about it, and one of the reasons I'm so interested in fixing healthcare in Rhode Island and trying to be a part of the fix, playing a role in it, is the healthcare providers are really good here. Like, my surgeon was great. There was no reason.
Who'd you have?
Dr. Oriolesi at Lifespan. Excellent surgeon.
Yeah.
Excellent. I felt entirely comfortable in his care. Thought, research Boston, research New York. It's kind of a tricky thing, and don't regret at all staying at home to get that done. But, those providers need our support. And when I mean support, I mean the support of leaders in government that can get health care fixed, and that means driving more revenue into the system.
Right, like you said, if they're paying a lot less money than Massachusetts, that's not good. That's
Well,
not
it's
good
not
at
good
all.
for hospitals either because they get paid less too. So what that means is, when you go to Boston, you know, sometimes you look at these hospitals, you're like, wow, this place is
Right, yeah.
top notch, shiny, new.
There's a reason for it.
There's a reason for it. Parts of our hospitals look like that, but not the way they do in some other states. So, you know, look, my son went to med school in St. Louis at Washington University in St. Louis. It's literally connected to Barnes Jewish Christian Hospital, which is a 1,400 bed hospital out there. It's enormous.
1,400 beds?
1,400 beds in that
Wow.
hospital. It's in St. Louis, Western St. Louis. And separate and apart, there's a children's hospital. There's a cancer center. But my point is, there are 2 cranes in the sky right now as we speak. I just left there a month ago. 2
Right.
cranes in the sky. When was the last time you saw a crane in the sky in all of Providence?
Well, you sound
Let
like,
alone at the med
you sound
school.
like our former governor.
I do, a little
Cranes
bit.
in the sky.
Got to get a crane in the sky. He didn't do it though. You got to get a crane in the sky. What that means is that you're on the move. You're investing back into your system.
Right.
Right. A crane in the sky means you're building something.
Obviously.
Could be a parking garage.
Right.
Because you need parking for people who are coming to get their health care there. It could be building a new building or upgrading a building. But if you're not investing back into the system, your system can't deliver the kind of health care that we need. I think we have a fundamental choice to make in Rhode Island, and all Americans need to make it, I think, in some way, shape, or form. There's a certain amount of health care that we want and almost demand.
Right.
We want to call right back from our doctor. We want to be able to get it and see them right away when we're sick. Like your dentist, right? That's great service, but you don't get that all the time,
No.
right?
No.
Right? You want to be, if they say you need a specialist and you're worried, you want to see a specialist right away. If you need a test like an MRI or a CAT scan, you want to get it right away. Well, in Rhode Island, none of that's happening. You can't find a doctor at all. There's one neurologist that serves South County Hospital.
That's it.
And he's getting ready to retire.
Oh, God.
I've known him a long time. He's a little bit older than me. I went to college with his wife. Okay, so he's in his early 60s. He's getting ready to retire. Nobody to replace him. So you can't find a specialist. You want to get a test done in Rhode Island, it takes 2 weeks. In Massachusetts, same test you can get tomorrow. Okay? So those are all things that we don't want to live with.
Right.
We want to fix that.
But why can't
But
it be
that's a
fixed?
money question, Bob.
Exactly. Why can't? Why
It's
are
a
we
money-
paying
it's a-
29 cents less?
It's a money question, and we have not only are we not doing anything about it, our state leadership in some quarters doesn't even understand that's the problem. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Like our state leaders, some of them, don't even realize why there's a problem, let alone have any ideas about how to fix it. So we run around with half fixes. You know, we'll tweak this, or we'll do that, or someone will study this, or I'll put together a group to look at that, instead of actually going out there and doing the 5 things that'll fix it. And explaining to Rhode Islanders why. Right? So we've made a big deal out of keeping costs down. And that's fine, as long as we agree that we want a certain kind of health care that isn't as good as it is other places.
Substandard.
That's a choice. And where the tipping point is where it's not substandard, it doesn't exist at all. Like the hospital that you've counted on is closed.
My hospital closed.
Memorial. Well, that may not be the last one.
Yeah.
Because the owner of Roger Williams and Fatima wants to close those hospitals.
Exactly.
Now they say they want to sell them.
Right.
They want to sell them because we are forcing them, the Attorney General's office,
to pay.
is forcing them to stay open because we've got their money and we won't give it back to them unless they keep them open year over year. So I'm holding $45 million of their money. At one point I had 80. They would have closed them. They get the money back as long as they keep the hospitals open.
Well, they get it back in piecemeal.
Correct.
Right?
So they get it back as they keep them open and keep them, pay their bills, which they haven't done. And we're forcing them to do now. What's the point? That owner, if they're not paying their bills, what does that tell you? They have no interest in keeping that hospital open.
Right.
What will it mean when Roger Williams and Fatima Hospital, out of the blue, close their doors?
Awful. They
and they're just
close?
gone.
Awful.
What does that mean? I don't think Rhode Islanders will recognize this crisis
until it happens,
including
until it's too
at the
late.
top levels of our government.
Yep.
Until it happens. Until it happens.
And then it's too late.
Yeah, it's awfully hard to open a closed hospital once it's closed. Yeah, and there are people who say, well, we don't need them. We got too many beds. We don't. That is just flat out false. You know, I have a really good healthcare team now, Bob. Really good. We didn't have one when I started. We have a really good one now. They can get me the information I need at a drop of a hat. I asked them a couple of weeks ago, how many people right now are in Roger Williams or Fatima hospitals that are there for behavioral health or mental health issues?
Right.
88. Those hospitals closed today. Butler can't take those patients.
Right.
Rhode Island Hospital can't take those patients. Where are they going to go? That's just the behavioral health and mental health beds. There's a couple of hundred other people that aren't going to have anywhere to go that are in the hospital right now. If you check where, I was with some lifespan emergency room doctors 2 months ago. On that Wednesday that I was with them, we were talking about healthcare. They had 50 patients in their ERs that you had nowhere to put them. So you just had a stroke. They need to stick you upstairs in a bed.
Right.
Nowhere to put you.
I was at Merriam to visit somebody last week. I counted 29 people in the accident room.
Yeah.
In the emergency room.
Yes.
29 people.
Yes.
There.
And there are people that aren't just there getting treated. They've been treated. They need to be admitted to the hospital.
Right.
They need to go upstairs and get into a hospital bed and get seen by the attendings and get tests done and get medications administered and whatever they need. Get ready for surgery if they need it. Although I like to think they would go right up there, but the ER can't move them up there because there are no beds. So it's not like if you close these hospitals, all those patients can magically go over to.
Oh my God!
Right?
There'd be 59 people in the accident room.
Correct. And here's the other thing: even if there are rooms available, we don't have the workforce to staff them.
Right. Right.
So look, these are all things that are fixable, right? It sounds bad, and it is bad, but it's fixable. But you can't fix it if you don't even understand it's a problem. And that's what really worries me. And that's why I talk so much about it.
So you're saying that the administration doesn't understand that there's
That's
a problem?
That's correct. Certainly the governor, in my view, does not understand it. Just doesn't understand it. Look, his answer is to put together a healthcare cabinet and come back with a report in a year. Roger Williams in Fatima Hospital's owner owes $17 million in unpaid bills as of a month ago. Well, that's actually as of December 30th of last year, and had no intention of payment until we went to court to force them. A healthcare cabinet that's going to come back with a report in a year doesn't solve that problem.
Right.
That's not going to solve that problem. We don't have time to wait.
Makes sense to me.
Well, it makes sense to me too. That's why I talk a lot about it. People say, well, you know, Neronha's over there talking to health. What does the AG know about healthcare? I know a lot more than I used to. And it's not by choice, it's by necessity. I mean, I don't think that there's a group of better healthcare lawyers and thinkers in my office right now. They can do everything. They understand how healthcare works, and they're capable of going into court to make things happen. I think they're going to be in court again in the next 24 to 48 hours because they're going to need to be there. But it's only my lawyers that can do that. And you know, that's a real tribute to them. I mean, they're really top notch, and I'm just really glad.
Well, that's why the health department uses them.
Well, it's why we do it on our own, and they don't do it, frankly.
Right.
You know, it's not so much about them using us. We see it and we go do it.
All right. How about crime in the state of Rhode Island?
Crime, you know, relative, there were, I just read it because my son's now living in Chicago. I think there were 100 people shot in Chicago over the weekend. Over the weekend,
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's typical, though, Chicago.
I know. So by that standard, I think we're doing pretty well. Can we?
Yeah, but Chicago's a lot bigger than
it is.
Can we do better? Sure,
but I'm going to give you an example of something that really worked. You know, because we don't hear a lot of good news a lot of times about crime from some quarters. If you remember, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago, a lot of the talk around the neighborhoods of Providence, things were driving people crazy, were Cadillac converter thefts.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Park your car out in the street.
It's awful.
You come out, turn the key, brrr, you hear the noise, somebody got under your car, stole your catalytic converter. It's cost thousands of dollars.
Exactly.
Happening all over the state. Have you heard about it in the last?
And I know why.
Tell me why it's not happening anymore.
Because you went after the people that were buying them.
That's correct. That's correct.
And that's something I never understood why people didn't go after the
That's
people
what we
that
did.
were buying them.
And we made surprise inspections.
Yep.
We sent our investigators. We've sent our undercover investigators in there.
Exactly.
And you know, in fact, one of the guys said to one of our undercover guys,
About time?
well, no, he said, well, look, we can't, you know, the AGs are keeping an eye on us. So that alone has virtually eliminated catalytic converter theft.
Sure.
So there's
they got no market for
So
them.
there's some good news. Look, do we still have narcotics being trafficked? You bet. Is fentanyl still a problem? It sure is. Way too many guns out there. Way too many guns out there. You know, there was just this homicide where a woman was shot by her estranged husband. And,
Yes.
And that guy had so many high capacity magazines. And so, I mean, firearms were laying, 2 children, 10 and 14. I mean, there are firearms, you know, lying around on that property. You know, like, I'm trying to equate something you might find in my house, like TV remote controls. I mean, you know, it's just stunning to me why someone would need 5, 6, 7 high capacity magazines. And a woman's dead. A woman's dead.
Right.
And there are 2 children. I mean, he's dead too. I don't think anybody's
That was the
going
one
to
in
shed many
Hopkinton?
tears. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to shed many tears over that, but over his passing. But those 2 children, 10 and 14 years old,
Don't have parents.
and they were their grandparents. They were their grandparents.
Right.
And you know, the gun violence, whether it be in the context of domestic violence or street violence, is something that concerns me greatly. I will say that what we have had some success doing is going after people who are buying for other people. So let's say I have a felony record, you go buy a gun for me.
Right. What do they call that?
Lying and buying, or straw purchasing.
Straw, that's what I'm talking about. Straw
And
purchase.
so what happens is when you go buy a firearm, my office gets a record that you bought a firearm. I can only keep that record. We can only keep that record for 30 days, okay? Because we don't have a gun registry. So what that means is Bob Venturini bought a 6 Hour pistol, and you know, it's where you live and all that other stuff. Pass the background check, all that, that's going well and good. But we know that there are people out there buying guns for people who have a felony record,
Right,
or
who
other
can't buy
reasons
guns.
who can't buy a gun. That's how guns get in the hands of those people.
Right.
They steal them, they buy them with drugs, but people will walk into a gun shop and buy them, and not infrequently. And sometimes, there's one guy we prosecuted who put dozens of guns on the street. So anyway, my guys get that sheet. And what they'll do is, you know, they're experienced former Providence detectives that have retired are working for me now. Former ATF investigators that have retired from ATF that are working for me. In fact, the fellow who runs our BCI, Ed Troiano, is a very distinguished retired ATF special agent. And so they know the players in Rhode Island. And so when there's something about Bob Venturini that they know, hey, look, that connects him to these 3 other people. I know Bob hangs with these 3 guys.
Right, right.
He's a player.
Not really, though, by the way,
No,
folks.
this is all hypothetical.
It's all hypothetical.
Hypothetical. Well, then we may go knock on Bob Venturini's door. Now, you don't have to answer the door. You don't have to talk to us. But
Right.
if you do, we'll ask you where that gun is. Or we'll develop other ways of figuring out that you were buying it for somebody else. You know, we arrest the guy with the gun and, well, where'd you get the gun?
that
I got
gun?
it from
I
Bob
got it from Bob
Venturini.
Venturini.
So, in any event, we are doing a lot more of that work, and we've had a lot of success in that. We've done, I think, a very good job of identifying ghost gun purchasers. So people buying these ghost gun kits online and putting them together. We've done a couple of big cases like that. But there's no question that street violence continues. I think most Rhode Islanders are safe where they live and where they work. I do think that there is enough homelessness, mental illness,
Right.
and substance use that those things can come together and make people at least feel unsafe.
Yep.
I don't think people feel as safe as they might in Kennedy Plaza today. In fact, one of my employees was assaulted just going to Dunkin' Donuts over there. There was a woman coming back and she was assaulted by somebody with a mental health issue right behind the old Superman building. I don't think people feel safe and perhaps aren't safe when those three things come together. I mean, that's not somebody involved in drug dealing down in Kennedy Plaza waving a firearm around at people getting on the bus. I think that happens, but not in places like that. But I do think that our inability to deal with homelessness, mental illness, and substance use disorder, in whole or in part, not every homeless person has mental health issues.
Right.
But whether when there's one of those things or two of those things, or they hit the trifecta and they got all three of them.
All three of them, yeah. You got a problem.
Then you got a problem.
Right.
And I think under those circumstances, people in Rhode Island can feel unsafe or to a certain extent be unsafe. And we really need to address that. And I don't have an easy answer there. That's not within my current set of responsibilities, but I'm sure the mayor of Providence is focused on it. All mayors that I've ever known have always been focused on it. But balancing the safety of workers and people who live in downtown Providence with frankly the rights, the constitutional rights of people to stand and do what they want. I mean, look, you can go stand in Kennedy Plaza, as long as you're not bothering anybody. But how do you know that somebody's going to bother somebody before they actually do it? I mean, you don't, and that's always the trick with
police officers.
Right, exactly. So a good solid police presence. I think. Look, I learned a long time ago, and I think Providence Police has done a good job of this, getting officers out of their cars and on foot or on bicycles helps. I think we could use more Providence police officers.
Oh, when I grew up, that's what we all had, beat cops.
Right. I mean, they knew the beat. They walked the beat.
Right.
You got one car handling a kind of a tough neighborhood. It's pretty easy to avoid the car. You kind of know where it is at all times.
Exactly.
So, and I've seen that. I mean, I've been out on a walk where that was true 15 years ago, and it's changed, and that's a credit to the men who have led the Providence Police Department, Oscar Perez and Huey Clements, and before Huey, Dean Esserman, all of whom, I thought were very effective chiefs in their own way. So I think crime is okay, Bob, but it's not something you ever take your mind off. And statewide, I mean, the reality is there's still a lot of cases. I mean, we have 14,000 pending felony cases. I mean, by comparison, when I was U.S. attorney, we had 100.
Really?
That we charged a year, and maybe 150 going at any given time. I got 14,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of cases.
That's a big increase.
It's a big increase. It's why the job, frankly, is much more of a challenge than it was to be U.S. attorney. It really was. This job is more interesting. It's more challenging.
You seem to love it, though.
But it's harder. I do love it. I do love it. I think it's the only job in elected office that has ever really interested me because of the work. I mean, I'm a lawyer and a prosecutor after all. Right. I never thought I'd be spending so much time on things like healthcare, environmental protection, and consumer protection. I mean, there's a fire down at the port today. We're going to be in court this afternoon trying to address that. We have been trying to address that site in Providence, Rhode Island Recycled Metals, since it was going when I took office. I hope it won't be, but it's likely to still be going when I leave office 8 years later.
Wait a minute, that's still going, that case?
Yeah, it's still going. There's a fire down there today, so we're going to be in court this afternoon asking the judge to change the way things are being done because what's been going on under the court supervision isn't working, and we've been saying that for some time.
Wow. And that's been going on since you've been the Attorney General?
Oh, yeah. Look, I don't, again, I'm not economic development is not part of my current responsibilities, but I can't help but drive down Allen's Avenue. Look, I get you want a working port, but I don't define a working port as a huge pile of scrap metal.
That was a sin what they did to.
And a burning pile
Right.
of whatever the hell it is that's burning down on Rhode Island recycled metals. I mean, I don't know. Pat Connolly has a wharf down there. I'm not sure what's in there.
No, he lost.
He's not there anymore?
I think he lost everything.
I mean, there's a strip club down there and a couple of oil tanks with tar that stinks.
Right.
I mean, that waterfront area ought to be something else.
Well, Pat Connolly had a great vision for that water.
Well, it didn't happen. I mean, we're doing it in Pawtucket, generally.
Yeah.
That's what Tidewater is, right?
Yep.
In theory, you got the stadium on one side, you got stuff on the river. Look, that river in Providence is beautiful.
Exactly.
You know,
and you can see it from 95. You
exactly.
Can see it.
Do you know we fought to open Public Street up to the public? Do you know the Public Street was blocked off? Now, it's ironic, right? It's Public Street. But that had public access for people in Providence to get down to the waterfront. They blocked it off. We fought to get it unblocked. But the truth is, it's great. You can go down there, but why would you want to go down there the way it looks right now?
A little dangerous down there.
Well, it just looks like hell.
Right.
I mean, it goes from, what is that, the Washington Park neighborhood that's down there with all the, that's the Washington Park neighborhood. It goes from a neighborhood, which is sort of mixed, housing and
industrial.
and the lifespan's down there. That's where I get my physical therapy for my back. I go down there on Allen's Avenue, and I drive from there to the office. And I mean, it changes from a place where there's stuff happening and there's businesses and
right.
and people live there to this wasteland. And it seems to me it's an area for great economic opportunity that we're missing. Again, I don't know why we have a 100-foot scrap pile down there. I mean, I don't know that moving scrap is what anyone thinks of as I think of Baltimore as a working port. I mean, Baltimore's got a working port,
right.
But it's also got a beautiful port area.
Right.
You can have both. India Park, everybody loves India Park.
Yep.
It's a small slice of our Providence waterfront.
Yeah.
And East Providence, I guess, is trying to do something over on that side.
Exactly.
There's not much over
right
there
on the other side. Yeah.
There's not much over there either at the moment. So lots of things to think about.
Well, that thing, I don't know if I'll get it right, but the thing with Pat Connolly had that old tire place down there,
Mm-hmm.
Dunlap Tire, and he had the boat there. In fact, I took it on my other show, Bob's Big Adventure. We took the boat down to Newport one day when he christened it, to show people you go from Providence waterfront down to Newport, and even to Block Island. That was the plan, and that property next to him got sold or turned over to that, somehow got turned over to, there was a dollar bill changed or some damn thing. And some company ended up with it, and then somebody sold it for $12 million to this scrap metal company. They flipped it on him, and they jammed him. He spent a couple $1 million fighting that.
Yeah, well,
he was going to make that into something really nice.
Well, what I don't understand, I guess, and again, I'm no expert here, and maybe we're just not ready for it yet, economically. But it just seems to me to be a very underused.
Oh God, it's a deep water port, by the way. It's at least 40 feet deep.
Well, look, you go down to Save the Bay, which is at the end of the same.
Right, Allen's Avenue.
Yeah, you go down to
that end
Johnson
road
and Wales, go right down to. It's beautiful.
Yep.
I don't know how many Rhode Islanders have been down there. I mean, Save the Bay is a great organization. They do great work on behalf of us in the Bay. But it's beautiful down there, and there's no reason why that couldn't be, that whole stretch couldn't be developed into a mixed residential, commercial.
In the capital city of the state of Rhode Island, overlooked by Route 95 at the S curve, or Thurbers Avenue curve.
Sure, you don't think people will get off at the exit and grab a meal there? Sure they would.
Yeah, or jump on a cruise ship, or jump on it, because that is deep enough
to bring in
a cruise ship. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's big enough to bring in a big ship to put a whole bunch of scrap metal on.
Exactly. How many times a month do they do that? Once a month?
It's crazy.
They could be having ships there every week, full of thousands of people getting off in downtown Providence, right?
Yeah, look, it would really change. It would really change the. I think it could be such a huge game changer for Providence, and I think you need somebody with some vision to do it. you know, it's a little bit like the Armory. You know, I guess there was a company interested that, that the administration, for whatever reason,
the oldest mall in the state, in the country, right?
Yeah, and had a problem with, and there's been no plan to do anything with it. So there it will sit. There's nothing that I find more painful than watching a brand new state building fall into disrepair because nobody maintained it. One of the things I tell our folks, you know, on the buildings that we've built, that my predecessor, Attorney General Martin, built, like, we own them. We have to take care of them. We have to budget for maintaining them. You should paint the walls every so often. Look, we've been in there now 6 years. You know, most people paint their homes probably every 15 years or so. Well, we're a working office. It's time for a little bit of paint. I mean, that's maintenance. I don't know. We just don't look. I think the key to leadership is being able to look down the road. You know, deal with the crises of the moment. You got to do that, but look down the road to avoid the crises that are coming. And if you can't do that, either because you're short-sighted or you're just not capable of it or you don't care enough to do that, Rhode Islanders suffer. They really do. They really do. Look, we've got a bridge. We're no closer to a plan, other than demolition, I suppose, but we're no closer to a plan for a new bridge today than we were when it closed in December. And we're talking here after July 4th.
Yeah.
I don't know how you slice that. That's inexcusable. Rhode Islanders deserve better than that. They just do. You know, I think they're owed an explanation as to why anyone would craft a bid for a project knowing, as the governor appeared to acknowledge, that no one was going to bid on the project.
Why would you do that?
I don't know why you would do that. It makes no sense to me. And yet that's what the governor said. And so, look, you've got to have people. I think everyone would agree that rebuilding that bridge is a #1 priority in terms of infrastructure in this state right now. It impacts commerce, it impacts people's lives in a very real and significant way. So it should be all hands on deck to get this thing done as efficiently as possible. To say that a bridge is going to last beyond our lifetimes, I don't know what that means. That's what the governor, I don't know, who cares about that, of course. Bridge is going to last for as long as it lasts, and then you better be ready to build the next one, okay? Maintain it or build another one. And you better be building the other one, like the Tappan Zee Bridge. You build the new one, right, while the old one's still good enough to use.
Exactly.
You don't build a new one when the old one you can't use anymore, okay? That's not the game plan. So you got to get this thing going. And you know, here we are. I'll be another month before we get to a point where we're putting out an RFI, and then it's even longer to get an RFP. And then you got to get, once you know what you're going to build and how you're going to build it, you got to
find a builder.
Well, and then you've got to get the materials you need to build it.
Yep.
Good to see you.
Well, nice to see you.
Yeah, Bob, thank you.
Attorney General Peter Neronha.
Thank you.
And folks, thank you for spending an hour with Bob and Peter Neronha. Until next time, see you.